Hi, welcome everyone to another episode of Hearing Health Insights with independent audiologists. We are so glad that you're joining us once again. And today I am very excited that we're going to be talking with Estie van Niekerk, an audiologist in Potchefstroom. Estie, I want to start out and give us an idea about yourself and also your journey to becoming an audiologist and where you are now.
Okay, good day everyone. Thank you, Cybrand, for the opportunity. To becoming an audiologist was not the fairy tale story of I have somebody who inspired me into the field. It was quite an abrupt decision to go study speech therapy, and I did not even know at that time that audiology was actually part of the course. So I was very surprised the first day that they put a picture of the ear on the board. I looked around and made sure it was my classmates because I thought I was in the wrong class. But that first day on, with picture of the ear on the board, there was just no looking back. I fell in love with audiology, and then actually later on, my grandfather became quite an inspiration because when I was young, he had hearing aids, but he battled quite a lot. It was in the 1990s, so it's not the technology that we have today. But I just remember sitting next to him in church and he couldn't hear. There was feedback. He was fiddling with the hearing aid, not wearing his hearing aids in the week. There was just so much that I think could have been done for him at that time that was not necessarily done. And I just always remember him in trying to give my patients the best possible care and solutions for their hearing health. Yes, I started my own independent practice in August 2023, so quite recently, and I think it has always been a dream. I just never thought that I'd have the chance to materialize that dream. But when the opportunity presented itself, I grabbed it with both hands, and again, not looking back one day.
You mentioned now about your grandfather that became the inspiration for you as well. It's interesting that research that indicates, and I think this is almost globally, where it takes a person 7 to 10 years to reach a hearing care professional from the time that they realize that the quality of their hearing is starting to deteriorate. Since I started out, it's now, as an audiologist 17 years ago, the biggest age range of my patients that I saw was 70 plus. It's now by far 40 to 70. Have you seen that in your practice as well? And maybe you can talk a little bit, if somebody's watching from the public here, talk a little bit about the importance of early intervention and what benefits that could have and why it's so important to do something about hearing loss sooner rather than later.
I think conceptions about hearing loss is that it only affects the geriatric population, when in fact hearing loss can affect anyone at any age, from a newborn to somebody in their teens. I've seen quite a lot of sudden onset hearing losses the last 2 to 3 months. If I count, it should be close to 20. And the age range was from teenagers, 40s, and even one guy in his 80s. So there's really not an age limit for hearing and hearing loss. When it's a child, ideally we would like to identify that hearing loss as soon as possible, ideally having amplification on their ears before the age of 6 months to help stimulate their speech and language development. I think for adults, sooner rather than later, we could prevent some other repercussions from that hearing loss: cognitive decline, social isolation, depression. There's a lot to be said about treating your hearing loss sooner rather than later.
You mentioned there about seeing children as well. And first of all, I always mention this on these interviews, just a whole lot of appreciation from my side with working with the pediatric population. And you and I spoke a little bit earlier just about auditory processing, because of the area that you are in, that you are working with a little bit more often, even that you maybe thought about. Can you maybe also just give us an idea? Maybe there is a parent watching this. Can you just give us a little bit of a description? If maybe somebody's interested and they say, I've heard about auditory processing, and I don't think my child has hearing loss, but it does seem like there's something going on with their hearing system. Can you give us a little bit of an indication when it would be important for a parent to make an appointment with you?
So when we look at, there is a few things that parents can look out for. We would, however, even if you do not suspect hearing loss or hearing problems per se, we would also always start with a full diagnostic hearing test to just rule out any auditory dysfunction that might exist. And then we do an auditory processing evaluation. Auditory processing has got more to do with what your brain does with the sounds that your ear can hear. So we've established that your ear can hear, your hearing is normal. What does your brain do with those sounds? How does it interpret those sounds? How does it process those sounds? How do you function in a noisy environment like a classroom, for instance? A lot of the auditory processing does overlap with the signs and symptoms of ADHD, learning disabilities. So it is necessary to also work in conjunction with other healthcare professionals to rule out ADHD and other conditions before we can say there is an auditory processing disorder. But we do know that it does exist and that it is possible to help these children overcome.
You mentioned previously that it's so important for you to involve a couple of stakeholders in a person's hearing journey. And I think especially working with children as well, how important it is to involve family members, caretakers, etc., even if it's not a child, if it's an adult. And oftentimes I think a person can think that it's isolated journey to be on. Can you maybe just highlight what the importance is for you of involve other family members when you consult as well?
Yes, I do think when somebody comes in for a hearing test, it's sometimes their own decision, but the decision already have started with a conversation at home. Family members mentioning to adults specifically, I need to repeat myself to you. You are putting the television a lot louder nowadays. When somebody does book a hearing test, I usually ask for a family member to accompany them. There's a lot of information sharing going on in the first consultation, and 4 years are better than 2, 6 years are better than 4. The more family members, the more information gets shared, the more information gets retained. I also think the person with the hearing loss, as you said, is not an isolated individual with a problem, where I think hearing loss more often than not can create a third party disability where the family members are greatly affected as well, sensing another type of loss, not hearing loved ones, communication, and being able to share jokes with them. And I think it's important for families to know that it's a collaborative process. It's not putting a hearing aid or putting some treatment plan on the table and saying a magic pill or a magic solution. It's a process, and the more people that gets involved helping the person with hearing loss, the better. As I said, a hearing aid is not going to solve all your problems necessarily. So the way that family members communicate with you will make a huge difference. Make sure you're in a quiet environment when communicating. Make sure you have the person's attention before you start talking to them. So there's actually a lot of education for the family that needs to be conveyed.
Estie, that's great. I just want to let you know that talking to you here and just getting a sense of who you are as a person and then as an audiologist, I can really see that you care for patients. Just on this last point as well, that it's so much more than just a treatment plan, and it's so much more than just that particular individual. They are obviously part of their society, part of their family, and communication is so key. So thank you so much for what you are doing. in the field of audiology. We really appreciate you. I want to encourage anybody from the public, if you're watching this, you are in the Potchefstroom area or close by, please go and see Estie, make an appointment. Estie, once again, thank you for chatting to us. We really appreciate it. I just want to let everybody know, if you are watching this conversation, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to give you all the links in the bottom of this video, and we want you to be part of the conversation. If something here was of interest to you, you've got a question, please let us know in the comments and we'd be happy to answer. Let's start a conversation surrounding this.